So I'm told that it would be a breach of protocol if you jump in and ask me questions during my talk. So I do encourage you to break the protocol and do this. You know, when something is video recorded, in fact, we do this when we produce our online classes. You know, if students have a question, you know, of course we respond to the question, and there's always video editing afterwards. Right? You can always cut these things out if you don't like them there. So, you know, I'm going to give you a little bit of the Stanford perspective. It's going to be hard to say anything terribly surprising and original after all these great talks that you've heard this morning and yesterday. But I'll try to make it interesting nevertheless. So, you know, I'll start out with just a quick reminder of what probably everybody here in the room knows, that online learning is nothing new. We've had it for probably about 25 years at considerable number in the United States. These are the numbers for online enrollments pre-MOOCs. So this is 2010, and there are almost 2.8 million students enrolled in fully online programs in higher education. So that's 14% of the total student population. Some people will say, oh yeah, that's all these for-profit institutions. Not so. 2/3 of these are not-for-profit. 3/4 of these in degree programs. Business, extremely popular. You can't offer enough business classes apparently. People just want to take those and want to take them online. STEM is a little less ambitious, or the number is a little smaller, 13% of that total. So at Stanford, we've been doing this for a long time. We have the Stanford Center for Professional Development, which is part of the School of Engineering. And here's a little bit of history. This goes back all the way to our honors cooperative program in the 1950s that we started. And the distance delivery of these classes started in 1969 with closed circuit television. The first courses that were delivered then by video streaming was in 1996. This was very adventurous and unstable technology at the time, but very quickly, you know, we shut down the closed circuit television and did everything online by video streaming. A big shift came for our efforts by launching a professional education unit which really offered tailored courses for the professional education market rather than just extending our academic portfolio. And that's been extremely successful over the last 10 years or so. And I should also mention that SCPD was the first to put out Stanford courses openly for free for the world in 2008, and that was really the start and the precursors of the MOOCs. And Andrew Ng's machine learning course, which of course then also became one of the first MOOCs in 2011, was put onto Stanford Engineering Everywhere, and we had tens of thousands of students that enrolled in these courses. So we've been helping, if you want, advancing and maybe cannibalizing our own model here. So SCPD operates in two segments. Let me report that. The academic segment, and you know, one of these I hope is going to be a laser. Here we go. There is a laser pointer. So the academic segment is really just an extension of our academic courses at the master's level in engineering. So we, you know, in the last academic year, we televised 158 graduate courses from 12 different departments. Students that enroll for these courses earn Stanford credit. There's really no difference from what our residential students do, except that this is delivered at a distance. These courses are bundled in graduate certificates, so this is roughly the equivalent of a depth sequence in a master's degree. You know, usually 3-4 courses specialized in a particular area. Professionals often don't have the time to do a whole degree program, and this serves their needs and interests. Overall, 7% of our master's degrees are granted to students at a distance, and so this is actually quite typical if you look at the overall statistics in the United States, and in fact slightly lower even than I think the overall number. The academic side, of course, we need departmental admissions, and we do send students away who wanna do this to keep the quality standard. That's very different from the professional side. So the professional courses, you see there are actually fewer. 42 professional courses. These tend to be much shorter than the academic courses. You know, maybe an academic course has 100 hours of workload all in all. A professional course might have 20 hours of workload, and that's because, again, busy professionals often don't have the time. They want something that's very streamlined and targeted and that they can go through quickly. So this is very much tailored to industry needs. Again, we have these sequences that lead to professional certificates. There are 7 of them that we currently have. We also do a lot of custom programs. That's actually the biggest growth sector for us, where companies come and they ask for the development of a special program for their employees. Often these are related to programs we already have, but we work with them to figure out what they need. And these are often hybrid programs, part of it in person, but then with an online component also. You know, some courses online, some on Stanford campus, maybe some at the premises of the company. Generally, these courses are not selective, so we don't send people away. You know, if you do a custom program, the company brings their employees. You know, we take them all. We're not going to reject anybody. You know, if you look at the enrollments, this, you know, by general standard, this is you know, maybe a small to medium-sized program that we have at Stanford. It's been growing fairly rapidly in the last years. We have yet to see any impact from MOOCs on this. And you know, if you look at these enrollment numbers, you know, these are course enrollments, right, per year. These are full tuition paying students. In fact, we have maybe a slightly outdated financial model still, where we charge students at a distance more than the residential students. So we basically charge them full tuition and then an upcharge for getting the experience delivered at a distance. You know, one of the things that we touched upon earlier was the things that we need to show for being credentialed as a university. Our WASC that we have in the Western United States so far is happy with just comparing the grades that our students get. So here's one of these comparisons. You know, for different high enrollment courses. You know, this is a relatively gentle way of comparing this, because grades tend to be very coarsely quantized. But basically what you find here is that there is no statistically significant difference in the grades that students in the honors cooperative program and on-campus students get. Let's talk about MOOCs. This, after all, these 2 days were devoted to MOOCs, but I just wanted to set the stage for you where we come from at Stanford. And of course, MOOCs were something that originated on our campus in fall 2011, and that's certainly a story that Andrew Eng told you yesterday. Andrew and 2 other computer science professors packaged their normal CS classes that they teach for Stanford students as web video courses, and put them online, and to everybody's surprise, over 350,000 students signed up for these 3 courses. You know, we had expected, you know, maybe a couple of thousand, but I guess once the New York Times picked this up and said, "Oh, can you believe it? There is a course that has over 50,000 students enrolled," you know, then the enrollment really shot up, right? So the whole phenomena is, of course, fueled quite a bit by the media excitement. You know, of course, about the MOOC spin-off companies. You know, we are, on the one hand, we are happy, and this is the Stanford way. If people have disruptive ideas, you know, they go across the street to Sand Hill Road and get a pot of money and start something that can move at a speed that it wouldn't be able to move at a university. On the other hand, of course, we like and appreciate our colleagues, and we miss them dearly if they go away for 2 years and do something like that. So we had Coursera and Udacity, and then a company that you probably haven't heard of, NovoAd, very interesting model, was spun out later. In fact, they're just starting out this year, but they've developed a platform that is tailored towards group learning at MOOC scale. So you can actually run group-based classes, which are project-based, with 50,000 students. You know, that's surprising. You don't just have to do the, you know, kind of take the broadcast model online, but organizing 50,000 students in groups of 5 or 10 or whatever works is in fact possible. So they're doing that, and we've been using this platform for quite some time in the university and continue to do that. You of course know that Coursera leads in the field, at least in terms of numbers. So they have around 80 university contracts now, over 270 courses in total. Initially it was all Stanford courses. Now Stanford courses are maybe about 25 of them. And they had, when I checked yesterday, they had over 3.7 million aggregate signups. Of course, this is a little bit of a numbers game. A lot of these students that sign up never come back to even see a single lecture, or maybe they just watch the first one. So you all know about the completion rates, which are maybe in the 6, 8, or, you know, if it's a really great course with a high percentage, you know, maybe close to 10% completion rate. Of course, you know about the not-for-profit. MIT and Harvard basically said, you know, no way we're going to do this with a venture capital funded company, a for-profit company. This just doesn't fit together with our academic goals. And of course, in the meantime, around 25 other institutions joined the edX network as well. I should point out, not Stanford. I'll say a little bit about our relationship with edX in a moment. You know, here's an example. You know, one of these 3 original MOOCs. So I picked the one that's been taught by my colleague Jennifer Whittam. She's the only one who taught a MOOC that did not leave the university then. So she's still the chair of the computer science department. You know, you have video lectures, you have embedded quizzes, and you know, maybe something nice like a screen-side chat in the holiday season, which is a little less formal. You know, here are the numbers. You know, that's of course why everybody's excited. This was running in parallel to the class, the same class on Stanford campus, 145 or 140 enrolled students, and of course 60,000 students were enrolled in the online class, and ultimately, you know, 6,500 completed the entire course. You see, over 10%, so that's actually a very good class. So what's different? Well, one of the things that I guess nobody alluded to, at least this morning, is that we kind of, for online learning, it's almost like a shift from mainframe to desktop computing, right? So there's clearly a technology revolution that has enabled this. So since the 1960s, you know, at Stanford we've been using classrooms like this, and this is you know, the lecture capture model. You know, there was a few $100,000 investment in a classroom with cameras and screens and a control room in the back, and et cetera, et cetera. Audio is a big thing to make the audio sound good, and maybe have microphones for every student, and so on and so forth. But you know, today the production facilities look more like this. It's just a desktop computer. You know, this is the desk of my colleague Nick McCune that he has at home. He has it identically in the office. You just take a computer, you know, microphone and a tablet to write on. And you know, this is of course something that's been inspired by Sal Khan when he did his Khan Academy video. So this, you know, the investment is truly, you know, 2 orders of magnitude less, and that's been disruptive because instead of faculty took their fate in their own hand. Right? They said, well, this, you know, structure like this, you have to deal with university bureaucrats, and this is all expensive and complicated. We don't need to do this. We can just do it on our own. And yeah, you know, the quality might be better, and it might even be more convenient because you have helpers that do this. But there's something about being independent and just sitting down late at night at your desk at home and producing another module for your course that appeals to people and empowers them. And that's why faculty is just so excited about producing the MOOCs all by themselves. So MOOCs have been on the rise. You know, these are the numbers for Coursera. So I don't need to belabor this. You know, something I guess we haven't talked about this morning yet is that the majority of the students are not in the United States for the MOOCs, but 3/4 are abroad. And these are often people that just do not have access to higher education with that quality. And there's a huge unmet demand around the world outside of this country. You know, this of course has been fueled to a big degree by the excitement in the press. So you know how these hype cycles go. We are probably a little beyond the peak now of the initial hype. There's going to be a valley of disillusionment, but you know, something good is going to come out of it ultimately. So let me talk a little bit about what's been happening at Stanford and how we've been dealing with this disruption, which, as I said, you know, was really a bottom-up thing that came from the faculty. It's not something that administrators had dreamt up. So our President John Hennessy put a presidential advisory committee on technology and higher education together in early 2012, and we worked for a few months on university policy and reviewed it. And basically the outcome was, you know, nobody knows where this is going, what the rate of disruption is, so let's experiment. So, you know, it's very similar to what you said, Raphael. You know, the innovation juices should flow. Let's see where this is leading up. Something good is bound to come from this. So let's encourage people to do this and give them the support that they need. Part of this then was the appointment of a vice provost. And so at the university level, you know, John Mitchell was appointed to just be in charge of online learning for the whole university. Of course, Stanford is not a technical university. Engineering is a big part of the school, but we are still a general, you know, pretty much a liberal arts university where engineering is just one of the many schools. And there were associate deans appointed at the level of the more active of these schools. So, you know, particularly in the School of Engineering, also in the medical school and the business school. Those are the ones that are the most active and make the biggest investment in this space. We have a regular call for proposals that we issue every quarter. Stanford operates on a quarter system, so every quarter we issue a call for proposals or multiple call for proposals to encourage experiments. Faculty seed grants, there's probably about 50 of those that we've granted. It's typically on the 25 to 50K level. Or we also have bigger programs that we've begun funding where we encourage departments with programs to come to us and say, how could this transform, for instance, a degree program? And this is funding that we give to departments on the level of maybe 500K per year. In the School of Engineering, we worked out a strategy fairly quickly. There was a consensus building process that then manifested itself in this white paper from October 2012. Has very strong faculty support. One of the things is that it's very important to get the faculty behind you if you do this, and as administrators we don't get everything right, and there can be pushback. So I went to all of the departments that we had in the School of Engineering. We had extensive discussions about what we should do, and we followed up ultimately when we formulated this with a very detailed survey of the faculty. That led to further course corrections. For instance, this issue of MOOC and credit, that we had a lot of pushback. We thought we should have a path from MOOCs to Stanford credit, but if I remember this correctly, probably about 90% of the faculty was against that. So they don't want to see that, certainly for Stanford. The strategy that we developed, and this is very much compatible with the whole university strategy. In fact, we were a little earlier than the university as a whole in the formulation of a strategy. Has basically these three pillars, and we've broken things up according to the credentialing. We believe that credentialing is going to be the key dimension of differentiation going forward. And high quality content is going to become a commodity, is already now a commodity. You can find very good courses and access them freely, but the credentialing is of course something that is very important, particularly for top tier universities. So our first priority are Stanford academic courses, where we admit the students, of course, and have very rigorous criteria. It's very selective. Then we have the professional education courses, where we also issue certificates. And the third priority, so this is our second priority, third priority are the online courses without Stanford credentials. Doesn't mean these courses might not come then ultimately with credentials from other institutions, but it's not the credentials from Stanford, even if it's Stanford material. So if you think of a licensing model, which we're also exploring, these would fall here into that left column. And of course, those two pillars here are already the traditional things that we have done. The online courses without credentials are new. So why should we do this at all? And we think that MOOCs can be a great showcase for what we're doing at Stanford. So it's wonderful for people to see what kind of education Stanford engineering students get. But maybe more importantly, MOOCs are a large-scale learning laboratory. So it's online, so it's all implemented. Learning analytics can be performed and can some be performed at scale. So you can gather data that would otherwise take 100 years to gather in a single year. And this ultimately will help us enhancing the learning outcomes for our on-campus residential students. We believe that much of what can be learned from this is in fact transferable, not everything, but a lot of things can be learned from this. So we're making considerable investments actually in making this arrow work. We have built a partnership and alliance with our School of Education. Maybe some of you who follow the scene here in the United States have seen that we've hired Candace Still, who's led the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon University. So she's joining our faculty, is going to play an important role, of course, in making this work. For the time being, however, it's mostly the online and blended, hybrid course flexibility that is attractive for our students on campus. So we're going to start in the next year offering a number of our electrical engineering courses every quarter, but some of these quarters online for our own students. And they're going to have the choice of taking these online courses with tutored instruction or taking a conventional class, and it's an experiment. We're going to compare the outcomes. We do expect that many students prefer to take the online courses. That's the experience that we have today when we televise classes. And the students enrolled in the class, the majority of them actually do not come to the lectures. 2/3 probably just want to take the lecture component of the class, which is of course only one component, right, of many things that make a class work. But they prefer to just watch this as a video and maybe at 1.5 times the speed, or sometimes they go back and watch something again. So this is all good and very effective for them. A minority of the students still would like to come to class, and we've surveyed students, and there's really a bimodal distribution there. The big promise is closing the so-called 2 sigma gap, and let me just have a show of hands here. Who knows about the so-called 2 sigma problem in education? So that's some people at least, but maybe a minority. So in the education folks know this as a long-standing problem. If you use as a gold standard one-on-one tutoring for material, and you compare this with group instruction, you actually see that the learning outcomes are 2 sigma better than the mean for the group instruction. So this is some classic setting here where you have 30 students in the group, and so these are the outcomes, the same time, same material for one-on-one tutoring, and this is just the conventional classroom teaching. So it's been since the 1980s when this was formulated, a long-standing challenge to come up with methods of group instruction that are as effective of one-on-one tutoring, and we're not there yet. Mastery learning is somewhere, maybe a 1 sigma improvement. And the promise, of course, of online technology is that it can help you close this gap. And a key component of this is, of course, dispatching learning analytics and basically following this virtuous cycle. You teach a course, you collect the data, you analyze the data, and then you need to refine the pedagogy and then repeat. In fact, you need to repeat this many times to make things better. So this is really an endeavor that you have to do over years in a systematic way. And this is, of course, one of the big promises of online learning to make things better. I'll just show you, just so you see one glimpse here. This learning analytics in the form of video seeks, and this is actually a very long lecture. One should not ever have videos that are that long. It's like an 80-minute lecture here, and it's been recorded, and you can see that where there are certain hotspots here where students jump back. So above the diagonal is skipping, below the diagonal is jumping back and repeating. Up here, you can actually see what percentage of students are still watching. Okay? So, and you can see some correlation here with some of these hotspots. So this is where something got confusing and they got frustrated, and then they drop off. Of course, this kind of behavior, which is quite typical, is the reason why you should have maybe 10-minute videos and then some activity to keep students engaged. because of all this, we think it's very important to have your own platform that you control. It's difficult, right now this works nicely with the Coursera's and Udacity's of the world. They give us all the data that we need for the analytics, but we assume that this is not going to be the case in the future. And we just think it's crucial for us that we do this. So we put a lot of effort into a open source platform, which still has the name Class2Go. Now edX, of course, has the same goal. It's to say we're going to have this open source learning platform, so you can do your own instances and experiment with that and add on to it in any way that you like to do these experiments. And it wouldn't be good to have different competing open source platforms. So we all got together and we're merging these. And there is it's interesting. Some people report that edX merges with Stanford's Class2Go, or Class2Go to merge with edX, but it's the same thing, right? So we are actually, the teams are roughly the same size at Stanford and at MIT, and the big announcement is going to be on June 1st, which is that tomorrow. I'm not sure whether they're going to do an announcement on a Saturday, so maybe it's going to be on Monday. But the platform is going to be available open source, and we have merged the code bases, etc. So that's going to be a tremendous resource for universities around the world if they want to use their own and operate their own platform and experiment with that. Finally, crystal ball. I should look a little bit into the future, and I was amused a little bit by the previous speaker's last slide. The future, but it was pointing us to the next exit, as if we shouldn't continue along that path. So what do I see here in my crystal ball? Well, first of all, I see no free lunch. So why is that? Well, there's a cost, of course, to teaching a MOOC. MOOCs are not really free, we have, as a rough number, 25 to maybe 100K plus in incremental cost for production and TAs until you teach the first MOOC. Of course, there's you had the 300K, which was fully loaded with everything, and I think this is entirely compatible with this. So this is kind of marginal cost, right? If you have something and you add it on, of course, there's really no upper limit to how much you can spend on production of a good MOOC. So it's really more of a matter of affordability, right? If you want to do something that has PBS NOVA quality, I mean, the numbers are going to be much, much larger. And so it's going to depend a little bit on the audience and the resources of an institution. We are a little concerned if we spend $1 million on individual course, we wouldn't be able to scale. We have something like 6 undergraduate courses in the School of Engineering, and that would be very expensive if we would spend that much on every one of these courses. Faculty time, so that's one of the things that's not included here. Faculty time is extra. Typically 200 to 300 hours is what faculty spend on the first installment of the MOOC, and then 50 to 100 hours for a repeat. Because as faculty usually doesn't want to be hands-off, but they want to be involved. Of course, you could just leave it to other people to run that MOOC for you, but this is one of the bottlenecks, because faculty time is a very scarce resource at most universities. So we actually don't recommend this for untenured faculty. I mean, some untenured faculty is involved and likes to do it. We're not going to stop them, but we generally counsel against doing this if you don't have tenure. On-campus courses really benefit. So this investment is not just something for the outside world, because every mistake is amplified, by 50,000 faculty is very, very careful to make sure that everything works and is right, and you can't just wing it or it's just going to come back to bite you. And so everybody who has done a MOOC after that had a better course for on-campus students, which is great. If you want to understand where these things are going, I think the best perspective provided by thinking about the monetization path for the course aggregators, because they have investors. The investors want their money back, and this is going to drive their decision making. So there is a number of monetization paths, and some of them pursue multiple of them. One is, of course, this course from authentication to credits for the courses that are offered, and ultimately degrees. So I would bet that we're going to see whole degrees from Coursera or maybe Udacity also, even though they're going in a slightly different direction. But certainly from Coursera, I would think that we're going to see degrees offered sooner rather than later. So Vashish, your question before, can you just mix and match, do a Chinese menu of courses and then get an engineering degree? Yeah, but not from MIT or from Stanford, but probably from Coursera. Right? So that would be my prediction. Course, they're trying to position themselves as course licensing brokers, and that's a very interesting opportunity. It's probably not a lot of money in this for a university, but it's a worthy thing for universities to actually have their courses licensed and then used around the world at maybe nominal fees. The course aggregators have a really important role to play there, because otherwise every university has to figure out what the mechanics are for this independently. It's complicated to do this right. Another direction is platform or service provider for universities. So that's for instance, the direction that Udacity is going now. The partnership with Georgia Tech, I think, is a good example of these kinds of things. There are others that have done that all along. I guess 2U, which formerly was called Tutor, was mentioned. I think that's their model. So those are I think the major monetization path that drive people in or the course aggregators in certain directions. Now, one thing we need to keep in mind, the student population might be large, but it's actually limited if you think of something at massive scale. So there will only be a few winners in this. You can't have, there won't be hundreds of Coursera's, right? We can have thousands of colleges, but we can't have hundreds of MOOC companies just because there aren't enough students to go around. So the end is nigh, is at least what the Boston University president pronounced. End of higher education is near. Well, fortunately not, I think. I guess that was a typical hype statement, but the end of my talk is nigh, so that's the good news. So for our on-campus students, how is that going to look like from their perspective? Well, we're going to see more blended online classroom instruction that combines the best of both worlds. There's great potential, so why not combine both? And it's already happening. Flipped classroom experiments, et cetera, et cetera. I think we're going to see many large lecture courses delivered online, because there's really it's much better to see that, to sit in front of your computer rather than in the back of a classroom with 500 students. So that's very clear and obvious. I think we'll see courses from star faculty licensed widely in this country and around the world, but still the residential experience, which is so wonderful about the American university system, is not going to change fundamentally. I mean, this learning is really a social experience, and this lateral learning that goes on, that's really at the core of the undergraduate experience is not going to go away anytime soon. So, if you think about this, the sweet spot for open online courses and distance education might really be at the master's level. PhD level, again, it's an apprenticeship model. You need to be there. It's very difficult to get a PhD at a distance. From the perspective of faculty, it's interesting. We have probably about 200, a little over 200 now MOOC professors so far. There isn't that much experience with MOOCs. This is a shockingly small number if you think about the size of the phenomenon. But there will be many more that follow. But we're really learning how this works and affects faculty's life. But a lot of faculty think of online courses as the new textbook. It's actually less time to produce a MOOC than to write a textbook, and you can reach potentially many more students this way. So it's attractive, and so I think that's in many regards, online courses will replace textbook writing in the future. And last but not least, there's a vibrant debate about the academy's educational mission going on, and this is all wonderful. People haven't discussed about educational questions with that much passion and so much controversy for a long time, and that can only be good. So with that, I really reach the end. In the future, yeah.
Predicted.
Who was the first one? I wasn't there.
I mentioned it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I said they would deny it, by the way.
Of course. Yeah. Of course they would. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I have two, or they may be. I don't think I need it, or maybe comments.
Please,
for the recording. I certainly hope that this is not the new textbook. It does have a very textbook-like role to play. However, textbooks, good ones, are a repository of an archival information. I remember taking, forget the name of the book, complex variables. This was a big fat thing. It accompanied a class that had lectures, but I learned and could learn a lot by looking at that, and it had a lot more information. And I worry to some degree that we are going to, because lectures and this way of learning and teaching, they're useful for communicating what's important and how it ties together, but not necessarily for what is in an excellent advanced or even intermediate textbook. So I worry about that a little bit. Second is when you said there will be very few winners. I thought you were going someplace else. I think you're right with what you said, but one thing that I'm confused about is how many MOOCs we need that cover Physics 1. And so it's sort of like textbooks. There are a certain number of textbooks and they're at different levels. But then as every university is encouraging its faculty to get into this, there is a limit to how much is needed. And how individual universities will be able to benefit from the ways in which it influences teaching on that campus when you just can't have. How many universities are there? I mean, as you said, somebody said 3,000 to 4,000. How many introductory physics classes are there, or calculus classes? They can't all do this, and it probably is going to saturate at a very small number. So I wonder how universities at large are going to respond to the desire to be involved in this when, in fact, you just can't have that many classes.
So, I respond to your second concern. I mean, I share the first one. Yeah. It's a question. Yeah. The model that's been talked about a lot, and we don't know how it's going to play out. But clearly, not every university instructor will produce MOOCs, and if the model of taking some of these well-produced web video courses and then using them at another university with some other instructor that uses them as part of the teaching and then complements interaction with that. I mean, it does change the role of faculty. You know, there are so many adjunct professors, adjunct instructors today, and of course that's not a it's not a very pleasant tier of the university system. But you know, nevertheless, it's a large-scale phenomenon, and we should think of how these people will be affected by that. You know, it potentially means that you know, they're paid even less. You know, they become. So, you know, if you read the discussion boards around this, you know, there's a lot of concern that you know, the instructors maybe at regional universities that don't develop their own courses anymore, but use online courses at the core of their curriculum. You know, the way San Jose State has done it with a digital circuits course from MIT, they will essentially become glorified teaching assistants. And I think there is a danger there. It's, but how many courses do we need? Probably not as many as we have today. If we have fewer and better courses, that's not one, but it's probably also not thousands. I don't know whether others have an opinion on this.
So typically, our experience is like, you know, we have given some courses which was live webcast. So when you talk in front of your students, and let's say you are not being recorded, you tend to be more informal, you crack jokes, you do a lot of other things, and probably the value of your classroom activity goes up, right? But the moment you put it as like, you know, for a mass with, you know, everything, you have to put it in a proper, as you said, you cannot afford to make a mistake. So I would not deviate from the path, because many times when you start talking up, you know, about a point, you know, you just go around. Yeah. So I don't have that freedom as a teacher, right? So the pedagogy has to be also changed. And so do you think, is that a good thing or a bad one? I mean, because, see, I become too predictable as a teacher, which is also not good. I mean, it's just like I'm a robotic teacher.
Yeah, you know, I mean, most people prefer to record their lectures, as you know, and the lectures are only part of the course, right? I mean, there's the interactive part, et cetera, and then delivering it, of course. But the videos that they produce, most people get better results when they just do this without an audience, and you know, maybe in the desktop setting or some small studio. It also takes less time then. It's you know, I mean, our typical 50-minute lecture will usually result in 40 minutes when it's done without an audience. And you know, you're right. I mean, these kinds of interruptions and engagement with the students you don't have, and you know, people usually try to replace them by having some interactive exercises and that keep students focused and engaged with the material. It's very important that every 10 minutes or so you have something that engages the student, otherwise the attention is flagging. We're just not made for paying attention for 50 minutes, or, you know, clearly my talk was too long, right? I mean, I should have stopped after 10 minutes and said, okay, what do you have to say? But,
thank you.
Okay, thank you.